Welcome to another live reaction. I don't even remember what number of the spring season this is. It's been so long. The first week, every single anime that came out, I've either watched it or thought about watching it. And this is one of the ones which we've been looking forward to for a long time. And it's Carole Tuesday, directed by Shinichiro Watanabe, the director of Cowboy Bebop. It's probably one of the most hyped series of the season. And we don't really know what it's about. We know that it's about music and stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. I forgot that this was set on Mars. I thought it was a music show, but it's actually set on Mars. I completely forgot. Oh yeah, and another thing about this show, I think it's one of those other ones like Kakegurui, which is being released in Japan on Netflix weekly, in coordination with the other anime shows that are premiered weekly. But in the West, it's only going to be shown after all the episodes air, similar to Kakegurui, right? Another interesting and weird thing about the show is apparently the native res of the show is 720p, which I don't know why that's the case. Now, if you remember from last season, there was another show that had a weirdly low native resolution, which was Megalobox, but that was 480p, and that was for the reasons of being lo-fi and retro, right? But this show is about, robot society in the future. So why is this show 720p? It's just weird. Did anyone else see that walking suitcase walk animation? That's good CG, people. Pay attention. I'm also heavily digging the use of the credits as the show starts, which is very similar to what a movie does. So they're definitely going for that aesthetic with this, which is not similar to, no anime does that at all, except for maybe like the first episode and the last episode. Sometimes they skip the OP, but it's pretty generally either you go straight into the OP or there's some kind of cold open and then you go into an OP. There's very little use of credits while the action is taking place. It's not really something that we see that often. Let's talk about this character design for a second, can we? So clearly they're taking that look of that like Victorian Lolita type attire and like hair and stuff, but this character design is probably one of the best of the season. If we saw her costume and her face, which has been extremely expressive the whole time. Studio Bones really pulling one out of the bag here, you know. We haven't even started the show, and I'm already getting like super weirdly hyped for this, based off of a character design and a suitcase's walking animation. Okay, I need to calm down. Already loving the concept. The idea of someone leaving home just to pursue their art is like a really cool concept. And if you look at the top right, it's like 0049. Year 49, some kind of new Genesis event for sure. The city design is cool, if maybe a little lacking in detail. That might be just because it's 720p that I'm saying that, so it looks a little out of focus. But there is a distinct lack of like window lines or anything like that, so that might have been nice to see. But other than that, the city design looks pretty sick. It reminds me of like the final shot of Interstellar where they're on that ring and he like goes to meet his daughter who's really old now, and they look up and it's like a giant ring of futuristic looking stuff. It looks kind of like that, like a positive vision of the future, which we don't really get that much of these days, you know, with the negativity surrounding our times at the moment. Those CGI cars, the motion was a little bit janky, but the design was good, at least. They're not just like stock models. There was some effort put into making those CGI cars look distinct, which I appreciate. Futuristic skateboards. Oh yeah, you know you're in the future when there's a mode of transport you've never seen before. That's usually the indicator. Up close, the cars look way better than they do from a distance. They're still CG, but they look way better up close. Also, I loved her initial opening. It reminded me of Spike Spiegel. That was a great opening line, and the music was great too. This really is a good show. So far. We're only 5 minutes in, so I can't really say much, but it's just a good show so far. I like that they're introducing what I'm gonna guess that sexism is gonna be a concept that they explore throughout, just because both the main characters are girls, and we already see like she's getting discriminated against in her workplace. So it's good to set that up early, because we don't really see that with Tuesday, because she's kind of it's like the princess and the pauper kind of setup. So she must be like the privileged one, and she's not so privileged. So it's good to see that like dichotomy right at the beginning. There goes the suitcase. Can't leave your suitcase unattended in a big city, people. You gotta watch. You gotta handcuff it to your ankle or something. Do something. Your suitcase is gone, girl. This is a great show. Even if there's only one episode of the show, I already like this show. Because it doesn't focus on the uninteresting parts of the world, right? Which are the parts of the world that will eventually come to pass anyway. The parts of the world that operate on like a meta level, like it doesn't focus on the trains or why there was a touchscreen on the table or what is happening with this city. Why does it look like this? Why are the buildings so tall? It doesn't focus on the macro level stuff. It really focuses in on the stories of a few characters. And the more we get to know these characters, they're already relatable. We're not even 8 minutes into the show. These characters are already extremely relatable, right? How many of us can't relate to losing something when walking in a busy street or getting fired from a secondary job, like a part-time job? These are all things that we can relate to as humans. We don't have to worry about, we're not talking about like people sitting in an ivory tower somewhere discussing why the trains are this way or why the particulars of the world are the way that they are. And that this is, I think, in my opinion, I might be completely wrong here. In my opinion, this is the best way to do a sci-fi world, because immediately you're not worried about things that are different between the two worlds. You're focusing on what's the same, which is, of course, the characters. Just wanted to note, not picking on it because I thought it was well done, but the animation of her playing the piano is CGI, but I thought it was done very well. Not awkward at all. The fingers, usually when you have CGI things that are moving, it looks strange because either they didn't animate it fluidly enough or they animated it too fluidly, and because the anime is still at the end of the day 24 FPS, it looks weird and janky because you're skipping frames. But that was a smooth animation. Well done. This is an amazing scene for a few reasons. First of all, these characters have never met, right? You can't have them meet in a kind of jilted way, like they just run into each other or something like that. They're both on an extremely popular, it looks like, tourist attraction. That's why Carole has her keyboard set up, probably, because she wants to reach as many people as possible and maybe also make some money on the side. That's not her main motivation, but I'm guessing she wouldn't mind if that happened. So she's set up with her keyboard and she's playing this amazing song, which the song is very well done, by the way. The voice doesn't sound nearly as idly or J-poppy as you would assume that it would sound based on where the song comes from, but you would kind of expect that to be the case, seeing as who the director of the show is. And she's playing the song, and Tuesday just walks by, and we get a flashback to both of their childhoods, not at all expositional in any way, just giving us an image of what their childhoods looked like. Because remember, this is a princess and the pauper kind of setup. So we saw Carole's childhood, and she's like alone in a group home and people are taking other kids away instead of her, right? Pretty typical trope, but still emotionally resonant. On the other side, we see Tuesday, and she's in this like extremely lavish room, but she's alone. Still emotionally resonant. And when she hears the music, what does she do? She cries. That's how you compose a great scene, people. This anime is really well done. We're 2 seconds into them meeting and they already have a rapport going, right? That's just good writing, people. That's just good stuff. That crowd shot wasn't CGI, by the way. Those people were moving naturally. That was a good shot too. CGI crowd shots are just extremely bad. Like, they just make the whole thing look horrible. It takes you out of the show. I don't know if this is the first show, but I feel like this is one of the first pieces of media that really address like how widespread the impact of AI will be. Because her agent has already said that if you don't, shape up, I'm gonna make your manager an AI, and he's just gonna make, rational decisions, and you can't bully him around like you usually do. Now they say they've never had a human singer before; they've only had AI, right? And we know they're at least 49 years away from a Genesis event. So this is the kind of world building that you can do by just having like a few lines of expositional dialogue. He's only said like 4 lines so far. And the 2 that he said, we've learned already a great deal, right? And he's not saying it in a informing the audience kind of way. He's trying to explain his trepidation in signing this artist because he's never dealt with a human before. He has like 5 computer screens. It's kind of obvious he doesn't like humans. So this is like the reverse of like Hatsune Miku and everything else that we see in Japan, right? That's like fully artificial. There's no human component at all to that. It's all digital. But in this world, he thinks it's profitable to have a human face to the operation. So in some ways, our world is already more far gone than his. So that's kind of weird. It's pretty cool that they included that, but I feel like our world has already crossed that threshold and people are willing to accept fully digital entities as artists. Like it's a thing here now. You can go see holograms of Michael Jackson. He once existed as a person, but Hatsune Miku never existed, right? So that's interesting. Let me just talk about that cut for a second, okay? So I know I'm like going super into detail on this show, but that's because there's a lot to say. It is the first episode. People underestimate the importance of the first episode in setting up the world and the characters. And this show is really going ham in doing all of that, right? So we cut from that like corporate boardroom with only 3 humans in it and just robots and computers. We cut from that to the street, to 2 characters meeting a landlord, right? So what's that? That's like a juxtaposition of we see how soulless the music industry has become in this world, where literally they're just taking a model, putting her face on an AI's songs, right? And on the other hand, you have 2 people who just want to make music and one who ran away from an extremely privileged background to do so. So that cut like enforces the contrast between what we're going to see as like the heart of the show and what is wrong with this world type character on the other side. So that's an extremely good cut. I don't know if this is an actual reference, but I'm going to say it anyway, just to say that I said it. But in Blade Runner, from the book that it's based on, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, there's a convention. There's so few animals in the world that just having animals in your house is like a sign of great status. So, of course, nobody can afford them because they don't exist anymore. There's only like a few specimens all over the world. So what they do is they get fake animals and put them in their house. And Deckard, the main character of the book and the movie, one of the things that he either buys or wants to buy is an owl to put in his house. And this is a robot owl in a show about robots. Coincidence? Maybe. But if not, it's a great reference. I want to get me one of these. I'm going to get me one of these robotic whiskey pouring arms and just put it next to my table and be like, robot, pour me a drink. It seems like a great feature to me. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Nothing wrong. Whiskey pouring robot arms. What could be wrong? Can we just contrast the way these 2 characters are sitting? I know I'm going like super nitpicky, but there's so much to say. Like I've skipped over so many things already. I want to pick on this. By pick on this, I mean point it out. There's nothing wrong with the show. It's perfect. So Carole, who's the laid back one, is sitting laid back with her knee folded up, leaning back and looking at Tuesday. Tuesday is sitting facing down, hair around her face so nobody sees it, arms underneath her legs. It's a classic nervous stance. Establishing character when they're not even moving. Great. I actually have no idea how they're doing this. Parts of this cut are 2D and parts of it is 3D. This is insane. Like, I've literally never seen this. Her face has to be 2D. There's no way they got 3D looking that good. And if they have, they've clearly done something great. Because even in Hoseki no Kuni, they never had faces that were like line drawn like this and looked as expressive as this. Now, they did get it expressive, but it wasn't as expressive as you normally see in like great animation, like in a movie type animation. This scene just blew me away. Shout out to harmonizing, people. Harmonizing, underrated skill. Okay, that's it. Shout out Instagram of the future, people. This is Instagram 2049. Aww, that's so cute. Okay. So I've kind of already gone into detail about this over the course of this. but this is gonna. I'm already calling it. Like, I don't think this is even a hot take, but this is definitely going to be the best show of the season, and not without cause, right? There's a reason Netflix is making this in collaboration with Studio Bones. Shinichiro Watanabe just coming out of nowhere, dropping a classic on us. And I wanted to mention this, but in the opening like 7-8 minutes of this show, it utilizes like 14 different shots that we don't normally see in anime. And that's something that he's known for, because everyone who's seen Cowboy Bebop knows that it's not shot like a regular anime. Like, you don't just get the normal like perspective shots that we usually do. And I want to point out in particular, those scenes on the bridge, there were a lot of creative shots that we don't normally get to see in anime, which is way more reminiscent of movie shots, like the crowd shots, the tracking of like her standing there with people walking by, like the wide shot of the bridge. This is not stuff that we normally see in anime, right? So shout out to Shinichiro Watanabe for that stuff. I love the concept of the show. I love just like the young, youthful innocence of it. I think it's going to be just an amazing show. Not for people who are into like shonen action type stuff. Definitely for people who like more like emotional journeys, interaction between characters type stuff, which I'm totally into as well. So I'll definitely be watching the show. And if you like that kind of just good show in general, like this might end up being like one of those shows that you recommend to people to just watch to get into anime, right? And it's been a while since we've really had one of those. The last one I can think of will be like the new Full Metal Alchemist show, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And before that, it was Death Note. One Punch Man seems to be the new like go-to, but One Punch Man I think is pretty steeped in those kind of anime traditions. So even for people who don't know anything about anime, they just kind of hear One Punch Man and they watch it and they go like, oh, that's very anime. Like, this show is very anime. Like, if you looked at the show, you wouldn't be like, there's a kind of initial like barrier to entry when you see a show like One Punch Man and you're like, oh, it's an anime show. Should I watch that show? There's like a question, which you don't ask when you watch a show like BoJack Horseman or something like that. Those are more like just general audience type shows. And I feel like if the dub for this show is done right, this could be that next like mainstream success that goes beyond like just the anime and auxiliary anime audience, right? Because from the look of the show, I would not feel weird recommending it to like my mom to watch. It would not be weird for me to do that, because it's just about two girls trying to make their way in the music scene. And there are a lot of people in my family who are involved with music and things like that. So definitely we could watch this as a family and it would be totally fine to watch. And that's not something that you should aspire to. Like, you don't have to be a mainstream success to be a good show. But this show is not only, it utilizes the medium of anime in a way that we haven't seen in a while, which is always interesting to see. And there are like certain quirks to the show, like the weird 720p native resolution for some reason. Like the mixing of 2D and 3D like CGI is probably the best I've ever seen, because there are better animated shows that have been purely 3D, like Hoseki no Kuni. The action shows in that show are absolutely insane, but I don't think any show has quite done the mixture of 2D and 3D quite like this show. Because there's that music shot where they're playing the guitar and the piano, and her hands are CGI because it's way easier to do the smooth moving hands in CGI, and her face is 2D. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, have we ever seen this before? And I don't think so. So just on a technical level, it's already something that you should watch just for the technical, perfection of it. But on the other hand, it has great writing. It has really good voice acting. It has really good art. It has a really good story. Why would you not watch this show? This is probably the first must-watch of the season, right? Kimetsu no Yaiba is like a good show, but it's a shonen show. If you don't like shonen, you're not going to watch that show. This is like the first everyone has to watch kind of show. So this is like my first hard recommend of the season. I think it's going to be the best show of the season. So if you like anime in general, and even if you don't like anime, right? If you have a significant other who's not really into anime, maybe introduce them to the show. It's coming out weekly on an unofficial basis, or maybe when it comes out, at the end of 12 weeks or whatever it is, Netflix is going to put it up worldwide, just like they did with Kakegurui. So go watch it then. It's probably going to be the most successful anime of the season, in my opinion, just in terms of reviews and mainstream success. So that's it for this week. Probably will be back next week looking at this show. There's so much to talk about with this show that I kind of had to stop myself so the episode wouldn't get too long. But thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.